On today's video, we'll be replacing our glass build plate with a flexible steel PEI coated build plate. It's actually a system and has an adhesive on the bottom. We have two different brands here, two different types. We're going to try them both out. We're going to compare them to the glass one. We're going to see, is it an upgrade, is it a downgrade, or is it somewhere in between? And here we go. Folks, welcome back. Today we're talking build surfaces. Now, the Voxelab Aquila comes with a stock glass build plate. We love it. It has so many pros, it's amazing. One of the reasons that this printer is such a great deal is because it comes stock with a glass build plate. Why is a stock glass bed a great thing? Well, when we remove this bed, as I'll push it forward, underneath is just an aluminum or soft metal heated bed. That's what provides the heat to whatever is on top. Now, this heated bed is made of, like I just said, a soft metal. What does that mean? Well, oftentimes it'll warp or bend in some way. That's not really good for us because when we put a build surface on top, we go to level it, we're going to have a really hard time leveling that build surface if the heated bed underneath is warped or bent. But glass is known to be more flat. So when we put a glass build plate on top of our heated bed, it'll help take up some of that warpage and some of those bends. So when we go to finally level this thing, we're going to have an excellent, or I shouldn't say excellent, but a much easier time leveling it. And if this is your first printer or one of your first printers, at the price point it really should be, leveling is one of the hardest things you can do. So the fact that this printer comes stock with a glass bed is amazing. It's going to help us get our first layers great because it's going to help us level and adjust our Z offset appropriately. Now, that's not the only pro that a glass bed has. It's also very hard. If we were to accidentally crash our nozzle into this glass bed, it would certainly chip, it would damage in some way. If we scraped it along the bottom, if our Z offset wasn't properly calibrated, you'd definitely see some scarring in the glass bed, but it wouldn't make it completely garbage. We could still use it. We could still print it over those areas, and maybe that first layer would have a little bit of scarring, but generally be unnoticeable. But here's the best part. We could simply take this glass bed off, flip it over, and we can use the opposite side. We can use this side that comes coated from the factory from Voxelab, or we can flip it over and we can use the other side. It's, I would say, more glossy finish, but it acts the same way. A few other really great benefits of a glass bed: heating and cooling. Doesn't really provide any sort of maleffects on glass. It won't warp, it won't change its shape in any way. We can heat this thing, cool it, heat this and cool it all day, all night, and it'll be fine, which obviously in our hobby of printing, it's gonna constantly be doing that. Another pro of glass. So why are we replacing this? Well, the adhesion is sort of what we're going to get to. Adhesion on glass, good, not great. After a period of time, the adhesion will start to wear off and you'll have prints lifting from your bed. You'll have a little bit of warped edges. No matter how well you level it, no matter how well you adjust your Z offset, you're going to have problems. And that's where a glue stick comes in. Now, this next section is going to be rife for controversy. People seem to hate a glue stick. I don't understand why. I feel like they think it's a crutch. It's not. It is certainly a tool when you apply it with glass. Glue on glass is like peanut butter and jelly. You should definitely be using it. This is what I use. It's a simple purple glue stick. I get it from Target. Generally for back to school sales, they'll sell like a gigantic pack, maybe 8 to 10 for a low cost, $6, $7, something like that. And they're a thick, extra big glue stick. So when I slice any of my 3D models, of course that means we go into our software like Cura. We see the model, we turn it into G-code via the slicer, and we send it to an SD card, we put it in the printer. Well, you can see where your model is oriented on your build plate in the software. What I'll do after I'm finished slicing it and putting it on my SD card is, before I print, I'll take my glue stick and I'll just put a thin layer over the areas that my print is going to print on. I don't go crazy. One little pass, that's it, just so you can see a little bit of sheen of glue, and you're done. After that, your prints will stick like magic. I am telling you. I have printed for over thousands of hours. Every single one of my printers has a glass bed, and I've used glue stick on all but one. The Ender 3 V2 still holding out, still has great adhesion, sans glue stick. Every other one though, glue stick every time. I can hit a print, walk away, and not worry, simply because of the glue stick. But now the adhesion, as a pro, can also be a con. When it's finished, a normal glass bed will cool down, release your part. With a glue stick, that won't be the case. It'll still be adhered to the bed. Biggest deal in the world? No, not really. Kind of cool, actually, right? You know it's so well adhered that it's not going anywhere. Well, when it's time to get it off though, I need to use a spatula or sometimes a window sticker peeler that you might see in an automotive repair shop. Something like this. You can buy it at Harbor Freight, pretty cheap. And I get under the prints and I have to kind of dig the prints off a little bit, or at least ease them off, slowly but surely. Eventually they'll pop off. After that, of course, there's going to be some glue residue. Some people like to keep printing on the same glue stick. I don't. I want to just clean everything off right when I'm finished, so the next time it's ready to print, I can just go, I have a clean bed, and there you go. So then I'll come through with a little bit of cleaner. This spray away glass cleaner I use for just about everything, and it's awesome to use to clean these glass beds. It has a small portion of IPA, isopropyl alcohol, in it, so it cleans up the purple glue stick phenomenally. So we went over a ton of great pros to glass, right? It's pretty durable. It's going to take up any warpage in our bed. It's going to make leveling the bed so much easier, which is huge for us. Probably the biggest calibration there is. The adhesion, while not great, is amplified with a glue stick. I've never, over 1,000 hours of prints, had a problem with adhesion after applying the glue stick. Now, of course, my bed is level and my Z offset is calibrated properly. So then why are we replacing to something like this? Well, it was the last portion we talked about. When it adheres so well, you have to get the spatula, you got to get under there. It's a bit of a pain. Then after that, we clean it. We use this cleaner. We use the microfiber cloths. It's just a little extra step that if we don't have to do it, why would we? And that's where these PEI coated flexible steel build plates come into play. They will offer the same great adhesion as our glass build plate with the glue stick without any of the mess. These PEI coated sheets will require no added adhesive to get everything to stick. And better yet, they pop right off. No spatula, no razor needed. Well, how do they do that? Well, let's go over a little bit. Now, these are what's called a PEI coated flex steel system. You'll often hear them referred to as such. A bunch of different companies make them. I believe Wham Bam is the biggest purveyor of it, at least the most popular. TH3D makes a really great version as well. I don't have it, but I've heard nothing but great things. These are two versions that I found. This one is by HICTOP, and this one is by ERYONE. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. It's the word everyone without the V and the second E, if that makes sense. So, why are these a system? Why do we call it that? Well, it's made of 3 different parts. Let's start with this one. They're all basically the same, little differences. So the first part is a magnetic adhesive. This is going to go on our heated bed. This is what the steel is going to magnetize to. Now, if we look right now at our heated bed, so we just took the clips off our glass bed, and we're going to take a look at the heated bed underneath. The glass bed slides right off. This is actually the glossier side that you could use. Look at all those awful fingerprints I would be taking up immediately. So as you can tell, the glass bed has come off, and this is just a heated build plate underneath. This is what gets hot, and this is what's going to transfer the heat up above to whatever build surface is on top of it. That's where this magnet is going to be applied. This top side of the magnet is what the steel sheet sits on. This bottom side right here is 3M or like adhesive. The ERYONE comes with a no-name brand, I suppose. The HICTOP comes with a 3M brand adhesive. What we're going to do in a little bit, we're going to slowly peel the adhesive off. We're going to stick this to the heated build plate. That's the bottom part of our system. The top part, flexible steel sheet, coated in PEI. 3 pieces all together, 1, 2, PEI coating is 3, and that's it. There's not much to it. It's a simple system, but it should be effective. PEI, short for polytheramide, is a thermoplastic. What does that mean? I have no idea. I looked it up on Wikipedia, I'll be honest with you. But I know what it means is PLA loves this stuff. I've already tried these on a few printers before making this video, and I have to tell you, bravo, very good results so far. PLA, PLA Plus, Silk PLAs so far, all love this stuff. PETG loves it too, almost a little too much. So the idea behind this whole flex system is that the steel sheet, if it had nothing on it, steel side, PLA is not going to want to stick to this. It don't really like it. We probably have to put a glue stick on this at best. Maybe it would work. But with the PEI side, PLA is going to love it. It's going to be so attracted to this, it's not going to want to leave. So we're going to have to get a spatula or a razor to get it off, right? No. The steel is flexible. We're just going to bend it once like that. Our part's going to pop off, and we're going to be done. Carefree. No scuffing of this with a steel brush. No glue, no adhesives, nothing like that is going to be needed. We're simply going to place this on our magnet, print on top of it, take it back off, pop it like that, and our print should slide off. That's a great benefit. Now that all sounds just like glass. What is the one difference between this and the glass that we just spoke about? Well, it's that possible warp or bend in this build plate. This system won't effectively negate the warpage in our build plate like a glass build plate will. So that's sort of what's going to be going on today. Now we have two different versions. This is the ERYONE, and again, I'm sure I'm butchering that. I apologize. Please correct me in the comments. This is the HICTOP version. One is glossy, got that almost glass-like finish, so when you pull prints off this, it's going to be like glass. You're going to have a shine underneath. Then we have the HICTOP version, which is a matte. It's almost like sandpapery texture or powder coated. Really nice too. It looks a little more professional if I'm being honest, the HICTOP version. The ERYONE version, I can already see problems in the outer edges where the PEI sheet has been laid onto the flexible steel. It's starting to come up a little bit. So I don't think it's going to be a problem now, but I could see that over the long term, this peeling up and then maybe degrading the entire plate. Because if this PEI comes up in any way and it starts going towards the center, we can't use this anymore. The HICTOP version, however, I don't see any of that at all. This almost looks like it was sprayed on or treated in a different way. It doesn't look like it's a coating. So it's really, really nice. This looks very, very professional. Now, a really good point I should make when buying these flex systems, our build volume is 220 by 220 by 250. That's our build volume, but our actual build plate size is 235 by 235. So whenever we buy a system like this or a new build plate in general, we want to make sure that we buy one that is 235 by 235. So a few things to note about these different brands and systems. The HICTOP version is rated for 130 degrees Celsius for a heated bed. That's really good if you're printing stuff like ABS or anything else that needs a higher bed temperature. The ERYONE just said rated for high temperatures. Not really sure what that means. So if you are looking to print different materials that require a higher heated bed, you want to make sure you're getting a flex system that can handle it. Now, I only plan on printing PLA with these, so 60 degrees, 70 degrees max is really all I'm going to need, and that's what these are perfectly suited for. Now, PETG, P-E-T-G, it loves to adhere to glass. It loves to adhere to this stuff. I've heard stories of PETG on glass actually peeling some of the glass away. It adhered so well, which is yet another reason to use a glue stick, because it adds that little layer between the glass and the PETG that it can come off. Well, the same thing applies here. If you print PETG on this, there is a good possibility that it will adhere so well that even the flexing might not take it off. It might take some of the PEI sheet with it, which means this is then garbage. The second any of this PEI begins to come up or break away, the rest of the sheet will do the same thing and it won't adhere anymore. That means it's donezo, no good. Another con is PEI can be damaged quicker than a glass build plate. If we were to crash our nozzle into this PEI and drag it along, the glass build plate would scar and we can still use it. This is going to tear. The PEI is going to tear from this steel and it's going to come up, which means we're not going to be able to use it anymore. That's kind of a con. It means we're buying a new flex sheet with PEI again. So is it worth it to go from the glass to something like this? Personal preference. If you're brand new, I mean, I would stick with glass. I would stick with the glue stick. Me, I have 9 other printers. They all have glass build plates. I'm so sick of using a glue stick and cleaning everything. If this will give me a little bit of easier time taking the prints off, putting it back on, and not worrying, being carefree about that, I'm going to try it. So let's go ahead. We'll get this adhesive on, and we'll see how well this works on our Voxelab Aquila. So the first thing we want to do is remove our glass bed. You probably have the stock Voxelab Aquila clips on your bed. I use these binder clips just to make it easier for myself in the video. We take them off and the glass build plate is off. That's it. And below that is our heated bed. Made of aluminum, like I said. There's no slots or holes in it, so what we're going to do is spray it down, get any sort of dirt or debris off it. I'm using that spray away glass cleaner and a microfiber cloth, and I'm just trying to get any fingerprints or dust, particulates that might have been in the air that have fallen on there. We just want to get all that up because we want to make sure the magnet has a nice area to adhere to. And of course, you want to make sure that you take up whatever cleaning solution you use, take it all off, and make sure this is dry because that magnet's not going to want to stick to anything that is still on the heated bed. Here's our magnet, the base plate. It is 235 by 235. What I like to do here is line it up on 2 sides and 1 corner and let the other 2 sides hang over. Now this is the HICTOP magnet, I believe, and this was actually sized exactly 235 by 235. So there was no cutting necessary. Generally, a lot of the times, with maybe the more higher end systems, you get a magnet that's a little oversized, which kind of helps because if you don't put it on quite right, you have a little bit of wiggle room. It can go over one edge a little bit more, and then you can come through and then slice any leftover off with a razor blade or a scalpel, something like that. This one was sized 235 by 235, so this is where I would normally line up, right in a corner like that. I'd make sure both the side closest to us and the top side are level. And then we take that 3M like paper adhesive off the back. So there you go. I peel up only a small corner. We're going to start small. That's about 2 inches maybe. I just peel that a little bit up. Make sure you don't peel the adhesive off the magnet. Mine started coming up there, as you could see, but it didn't come all the way off. Not really a problem. And after we have that little bit peeled back, we go into the corner, we line it up very nicely, and I start to apply firm pressure. So here I am just lining it up on that one side, on those two sides rather, and then I start to apply that pressure with my thumb. And all we're doing is trying to get any air bubbles or anything like that that might be between the magnet and the heated bed out. So I'm pushing down and I'm pushing out towards the edges as I'm doing that. It's almost like massaging this magnet. Then after I feel that it's stuck on there nice, I lift the magnet up just a little bit, and I can start peeling back more of the paper on the 3M and start applying more pressure and making the magnet stick further and further down the heated bed. So this is, we're going to get a little different camera angle very quickly. That's what we see on the bottom side, and that's what I'm starting to pull on as I work the magnet further and further down. So I'm pulling on the paper, and I'm continuing to use firm pressure and push outwards towards the corners. Again, trying to get any air bubbles that might be there out, and making sure this thing is nice and stuck on there. Once this thing is on, we don't want it coming off. And there I am pulling more of the paper. Just be careful with the paper adhesive that's on there. It can rip, and then all of a sudden you're pulling two different sheets of it. You don't really want to do that. You'll make it harder on yourself. As you'll notice too, the magnet is almost a rubbery on top, so rubbing your fingers over it like I'm doing to try and get out any of the air bubbles can be hard. So what I recommend, and I'm going to do it in a minute or two here, is using a microfiber cloth or something that's got a little more fabric to it like I'm doing right here, and it helps pushing down that magnet even better, because as you try to do it with your hands, the skin, any oils you might have on your skin, it's going to give a rubbery sort of texture, and it's hard to push that magnet down there. Using a cloth just like I did helps tremendously. Here I am towards the latter half of it, getting the last of that paper off there. I mean, I hate to do this to you guys and have you watch this entire installation of a magnet on a heated bed, but people like to see it, and I want to show you it. It really is pretty simple, but it's one of those things where you have one shot at it. You want to make sure you get it right. And this is, you can see my 3M adhesive paper there ripped in half, so I was kind of battling with that the whole time, slowly pulling it down. And then as I found out the HICTOP one, as I said earlier, magnet was exactly 235 by 235. I had no wiggle room on this thing, so one of my edges was like maybe a half a millimeter off here or there. Not really a big deal, not a concern. But there it is, finally installed. Make sure it's nice and tight down there. And once this thing is set on just like that, it's not going to go anywhere. And again, this whole time, I'm using firm pressure. I'm not killing this thing. I'm not pushing this thing into the ground. I'm just using firm pressure. Definitely want to make sure all the corners and the edges are firmly down, because that's where it would start to peel, and that's what we don't want. Any sort of peeling will peel this whole magnet up, which we want to avoid. After that, I mean, I've been rubbing my hands over this thing for the last minute and a half. We want to make sure we get anything up that might have been on there. Again, spray away glass cleaner, get it on, microfiber it off, and then of course, big important step. Anytime we clean this magnet, we want to make sure it is completely dry before we put our flex plate on. If there's any liquid, IPA or otherwise, trapped between the magnet and the flex plate, it can degrade the integrity of the magnet, and we don't want that. So I make sure it's completely dry. That's the bottom of the flex plate. This is our PEI coated side. I don't have to clean the bottom, but at this point we've cleaned everything else, right? It's like I have stock in spray away. I'm using the spray away yet again to clean the bottom, any fingerprints I might have on there. And then that's basically it. We're going to slap this steel plate onto the magnet, and we are basically ready to roll. So there we go, PEI coated side up. Magnet goes on. It is a nice tight fit. I mean, this bed is not going anywhere. Very cool. We're ready to level our bed now and adjust our Z offset. Two very, very important things. Whenever we adjust anything around that section, we want to make sure we re-level our bed, adjust our Z offset. I have a video to that extent. I'm going to link either here or in the outro video. But right after this step, we level our bed, we adjust our Z offset because there's going to be a gap there, and we're ready to go. Folks, that's it. We've installed our magnet, our PEI flex system is in place. We re-leveled the bed, we adjusted the Z offset appropriately, and we're ready to go. So far, so good for me. I've been using this gloss version for a while already on one of my Ender 3s. I have nearly over 100 hours of print time on this one so far, and it's been unstoppable. It's adhered, everything's popped off. I'm sure you've seen some of the print finales that I put right before this segment. As far as this matte powder coated version, if you want to call it that, not nearly enough time, not nearly as much time. However, the prints that I have done on this have been just as spectacular. They're adhering, they're coming off just as well. I'm very, very, very happy with this modification. Do I want to call it an upgrade? Not really. I love this glass bed. I still have glass beds on most all my other machines. With the glue stick adhesive, this thing works bananas. It's really, really good. Leveling, I want to say, is a little easier on the glass bed. You have to really take your time with anything coated in PEI because you don't want to crash into the bed. You don't want to scratch it all because you'll damage it. Now, of course, this version, this is the ERYONE version. This is a little more easily damaged than this version. This looks like it was a piece of PEI placed on top of a steel sheet, which is fine. This looks like it was treated with a PEI top coat, meaning I don't think this PEI is going to peel up, going to come off nearly as quickly or at all as this one. I can already see the edges are beginning to fray, they're beginning to pull up, and there are some artifacts on the print bed that itself after some of my prints. Now, so far so good. I haven't had a problem with that, but it's something I'm going to keep my eye on. In the comments, I'm going to make some updates, or in the info section, I should say, I'm going to keep updating this video a week down the road, 4 weeks down the road, a month, 4 months, just to tell you guys and girls how well these are still holding up. My guess, this one's going to hold up a lot longer than this one. Let's hope, though, that these hold up both a long time in the future and we don't have to worry too much about it. So now, we went over it earlier, but I just want to reinforce the point. When we buy these, 235 by 235 is the sizing we want to fit our bed. Now, I talked about it while I was putting this magnet on, but a lot of the companies, especially companies that are a little higher end that you're going to pay a little more money for, the magnet is sized a little bit bigger than the bed. So when you put it on, you're going to have to trim a little bit. Wasn't the case with this version. This was the HICTOP magnet and steel sheet that I put on. It was basically 235 by 235 on the dot. Didn't have a lot of wiggle room. One of the edges I kind of missed with a bit of the magnet. Not going to be a problem. It's 0.5 millimeter, but something to think about. Another thing is the temperature requirements. This one here, the HICTOP with the steel sheet, rated up to 130 degrees Celsius. The ERYONE said high temperatures, but how high? We don't know. I'm going to use it for PLA, so I'm not too worried, but if you're looking for higher temperature beds and printing on something like that, you want to sidestep this version and go with something that tells you exactly what temperatures it can handle. Also, a lot of these come with a protective sheet on top that you might have to pull off. Now, mine didn't. None of these did, but some of them do. You really want to make sure, especially when you're using this glossy version, that you're not pulling the PEI off itself. Now, this came with a sticker that said, do not remove PEI coating. There was no other protective sheet on this. So if you open the box, didn't see the sticker, and started to begin to peel off this coating, that's the PEI. That's what our PLA is sticking to. That would make this thing null, void, and completely useless. Now, there's also a difference between the glossy and the matte as far as the bottom finish. So this glossy version, the bottom of our prints are gonna look similar to the glass version. They're gonna be shiny, they're gonna have a sheen. The matte version, or this powder coat type version, it almost looks like a sparkly bottom or a rigid sandpaper bottom. They're different. Is one better or the other? Not really, it's all personal preference. I've used glass for so long, I kind of want to look at something different, so I think I'll be using this version a lot more than the other version. Another thing to note is the size difference. Now, when we leveled our bed and adjusted our Z offset, I moved the Z end stop down because the sizing on this is 4 millimeters. That means this glass bed is 4 millimeters thick. Now, the magnet and the steel sheet for both of these are just under or around 2 millimeters. So that's around half the size of this glass bed. So when I lowered my bed, if I kept the Z end stop the same for this glass plate, it would mean I'm about 2 millimeters higher than I probably would want to be. I'd have to do a ton of leveling on these adjustment knobs to get it there. So what we did was, just like in our bed level Z end stop video, we adjusted the end stop. We just made it easier for ourselves by bringing the end stop down just a little bit, and it lets our nozzle get a little closer to the bed at auto home. I hope this gave you a little bit more information whether you want to do this or not. If you're new to 3D printing, I think sticking with this glass bed, not a bad idea, especially if you're using a glue stick for adhesion. It's going to be really good. Over the long term, though, if you want a bit of a quality of life upgrade, which is what I might call this, these options are really, really good. I don't have to put adhesive on. I don't have to worry about spatulaing any print off. It's kind of set it and forget it to a certain degree. Folks, thanks again for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you learned something. I hope this gave you some more information. Maybe opened your eyes to different things we can do with our build plates. We can go with something like a flex sheet. Maybe we stay with the glass build plate. We can certainly switch it over and go on the bottom of it. There's a lot of different things we can do. We always want to make sure, though, that we're doing them for the right reasons. We look at the pros, we look at the cons, and then we go from there. Thank you so much. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button, please, because I always have new videos coming out. My next one, I've been teasing it forever, is the BL Touch installation video on this. So that's going to be really fun. If you like this video, like it, please. Comments. Always look in the comments. People are always correcting things I'm doing, which is wonderful. Talking about things, discussing things, and even appreciating what we're doing here, which I love. But look in the comments. There's always information to be gleaned from there. I really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, girls, everyone else, keep on printing.